Yeah. Um, we need to tape things down a very, very specific way. Anytime I'm graphite transferring stuff, I tape it down the same way every time. So everyone should have a roll of tape out. And all we want to do is just rip off 4 small pieces. This should feel like second nature at this point. We've been using tape all semester. We're always taping down references, doing stuff with references and tape. So all I do is just kind of take a standard size piece of tape, rip that in half. And then I rip these in half the long way. That way they're skinny. It's easier to use skinnier pieces of tape. Now, everyone always wants to tape things at a diagonal like this. This is normally horrible for art because once we go to remove it, we will usually rip the corner. So this is what I do instead. I put down kind of this combination of horizontal and vertical pieces of tape, like that. And before like taping this down, I'm trying to make sure I got graphite everywhere I need it. So I might do a once over and I felt like my graphite stick wasn't making it all the way to the top of the eyebrow, so I just threw down another layer there up top there. And then we want to put the reference in the center. And now this part right here, very, very important. All the time I see people taping down all 4 sides. You do not want to tape down all 4 sides because we need to be able to flip it up and kind of see our work while we're working. So I just throw down a couple up top, like some hinges. And it's important that they are long and thin. So taking a piece of tape like this and ripping it in half the long way, like that. And anytime I'm sitting down to graphite transfer anything, these are the steps I'm always going through right here. So, you know, it might sound like I'm being a OCD control freak. I promise you I'm not. It's just I've done graphite transfer a lot, and I've screwed it up every single possible way that you can screw it up. Which is what I'm going to show you guys right now. I'll show you guys the way everyone screws this up. So we're not drawing yet. We're just kind of watching. Because in our mind's eye right now, we all would love to have a drawing that looks starting to look like this, a nice photorealistic eyeball. And then I'm like, hey, don't worry about freehanding stuff. We can just graphite transfer. So people, I don't know why they do this. Maybe they're excited to get into the shading or something. People will really oversimplify this. And they'll do this for the eyebrow. They'll like put a box around the eyebrow. Something else people will do is they will draw things that aren't there. Like if you take a close look at the reference, we can't even see the upper half of the pupil. But since we know what a pupil looks like, people will kind of like make up lines sometimes. People will draw a bunch of individual eyelashes like this and kind of scribble all through the dark black part of the reference. There's all sorts of ways to mess it up. So at this stage, we already have no chance of making it look 3D. There's so many things wrong with this transfer. There's no chance I can, in a million years, make it look 3D. So that's why I'm going to show you guys what sort of things I do want to be transferring. Because it's not that straightforward. Where, oh, all we need to do is kind of like copy things, outline things. It's not that straightforward. So, the thing about it is, we're not going around the perimeter of the whole, like, eye and eyebrow and things like that. It's all about where are the darkest darks? Where are the darkest darks? Don't think about shapes necessarily. I'm just thinking about values. Where is my absolute darkest value? Okay, it's the pupil. And I am just taking care of the bottom half of the pupil here. So that's the first line we are all tracing right now. It's like this U shape or, semicircle. The next thing I'm going to trace is right underneath this highlight. The highlight in the pupil is so important. So it helps get across the texture, the glossy texture of an eye. And then we got a couple squigglies up top here. These squigglies up top, this is actually a reflection of the eyelash. See this top row of eyelashes? It's being reflected in the eye. So different details like that help it look more 3D. And if we just ignore that stuff, we have no chance of making it look 3D. We got a pretty dark around the iris as well. Now, the pressure I'm applying with my hand is just a nice happy medium. I'm not pressing down super hard or too light. Nice happy medium, and as always, just kind of flipping it up to make sure things are transferring. I want to flip it up, make sure things are transferring. Anyway, out of this entire freaking thing, the largest area of black is going to be the eyelashes here. So I was talking about what not to do. You know, we don't want to just scribble all through the eyelashes here. Let's all try this part together here. We can just draw these shapes in the bottom right corner. And when I'm thinking about the eyelashes, they're going to be in these curvy triangle lines, these thin, curvy triangles. So just try drawing these. And the number one mistake everyone makes is they pull 100 eyelashes that are all the same exact length. It's going to look horrible every time. Eyelashes, eyebrows, anytime we're drawing hair, it's always very random and organic. So watch this. We want to draw more like this. Think about it. Short, medium, long, short, short, long, long, medium. You kind of want to try and work through it more randomly. This is going to give us a much more organic looking line. So don't turn their brain off. Anytime we turn our brain off, we're like, oh, I'm doing these eyelashes. We just end up with 50 that are all magically the same exact length. That's not how nature works. When things are occurring naturally, it's much more random than that. We're not robots yet. So that's what I'm thinking about up here. While I'm working around the top part of this section, going over the top section of the eyelashes, short, short, long, medium, short, long, long. Just kind of pulling, trying to make it truly random. And it should end up looking a little like this. Anytime everything's all the same size, it looks robotic, it looks flat. So this is another very important step to try and make it look, that will help it look 3D. And then all I gotta do to finish off this section is a couple lines for the bottom part here. Taking a look at the skull. This is where we're at right now. We're all up in this eye socket. So that's why there's all these cast shadows underneath the eyelid and at the top of the eyelid too. Because we're in this area, there's all these cast shadows happening. Look at this. Right underneath the eyebrow is a bright highlight. That's because it's that bone right there. Catching the highlight. This is a really thin bone here, man. I had a buddy, grew up with him and everything. He had like a really loud mouth. You know, we all got buddies like that. Just cannot stop yapping. And then he grew up and he somehow got in some sort of scuffle on a sidewalk. I'm sure it had something to do with his mouth. And the dude punched him in the face and broke this bone here. And then he almost died. Because it caused all this internal bleeding. So, all that to say, man, violence is not the answer. You better have a really, really good reason if you want to get into a fight. That's all I gotta say. Better be a good reason. Working all along the bottom here. Taking care of the bottom section of that dark shadow with some lines like that, and that will help kind of outline and establish the top part of the eye there. And then we have another very dark shadow up at the very top of the eyelid, along with a couple creases. So I'm throwing that line down there. A lot of people forget about these lines. They just kind of draw the eyeball and then it look copy and paste it on there. These creases at the very top of our eyelid, so important. And then going back to these shapes here, that's what I'm thinking about all up in the eyebrow. And we have this really dark shadow at the very beginning of the eyebrow. So I'm pulling these slightly curved, skinny triangles all across the top part of the eyebrow. And the same thing's going on at the bottom, except I'm not pulling them quite as long. They're just a bit shorter. So we end up with something that looks more like that. So much more realistic than a freaking box. Do not ever box in the eyebrows like that. Ugh. Why would you do that? Anyway, just working around kind of the whole perimeter of the eyebrow. I'm just trying to make it random. Long, short, short, medium, long, short, 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 short. Then we end up with a really nice organic line like that. And this is where our eyebrow sits. Our eyebrow is sitting right here, just above the eye socket. Just above the eye socket up there. Look at the freaking nose, dude. The nose barely has any bones. Like all the details that come out here from the nose, there's no bones, it's all cartilage. That's why we're not tracing a bunch of stuff for the nose. All we gotta do to finish off the eye is trace the individual lashes across the bottom, and we're done. That's all I'm doing to finish up the eye. Very, very quick and easy to finish off the graphite transfer. Because like I already mentioned, not a whole lot of stuff going on with the nose. It's all about the nostril shape. So stepping away from the eye, moving on to the nose. Just want to do a nice job of outlining this nostril shape here. And then this nostril shape over here. It's very rare that the nostrils are perfectly symmetrical. It's almost always like this. From a distance it looks symmetrical, and you take a close look and you're like, these shapes are actually asymmetrical. And the only other place that I have a dark shadow is down here. So I'll just throw a line here and a line there. That's just helping me see where these shadows are going to go. And it's been drawn proportionally because I traced it. I would say super lightly, I'm going to very lightly bring this line up here. You don't want to be carving it in there with a lot of pressure though. Very lightly bringing these lines up. Anyway, last little bit here with the mouth. Just working my way across the top section of the bottom lip. And you don't want to oversimplify with a straight line. There should be some slight variations, some very, very subtle peaks and valleys all along this line here. Especially there in the middle. Look at that. Dips down in the middle a little bit. Are you drawing with me, Logan? I hear a lot of tapping, not a lot of drawing. And then we have a very specific upper part of this shadow here, where once again, coming back to these lines. And that's what I'm thinking about when I'm working around the top part of this shadow. So, you know, I wish it was as straightforward as like, oh, hey, yeah, just graphite transfer proportions and then shade it. That's what I used to say when my first year of teaching. I was doing this lesson. That's what I used to say. And then like all these kids were having a lot of problems, and it was just really challenging to fix. So I'm like, all right, let me slow things down and just show them a couple little hacks. These are just some hacks that I've figured out over the years. Another really dark shadow at the bottom lip. Super close to being done. This is our second to last step here. Super close to being done. I'm taking mental notes too, man. Like, I'm taking a really close look at this bottom lip. Dark shadow. The very bottom of the bottom lip has a highlight. And then another shadow. Look at that. I would have never noticed that stuff unless I was going slow. And then, once again, real lightly, I can very lightly outline the shape of the upper lip here. There's a really smooth gradient all along the chin, like right below the lower lip here. So that's why I'm not outlining this shadow here. I have a line where it starts, But I would not want to add another line underneath because we need to have a really nice smooth blend. And that line is just going to ruin that. I'm done. I am done with the transfer at this point. I'm going to pass out some scrap paper to you guys. You should remember this from some previous lessons, but all we're doing with the scrap paper is taping it on the back because the reference is really nice to look at, but we have so much freaking graphite now. Graphite gets everywhere. So once you get some scrap paper, you just want to tape it on the back. Who out there still needs some scrap paper? So yeah, that's all I'm doing right now. Just maybe ripping off a couple more pieces of tape, throwing it down in the bottom two corners. But what's gonna really help me get a close look at this is by bringing it up on my laptop. So let's all take out our computers. I'll show you guys where the reference is on the laptop.